The last time I spoke, we had a special story about Jean-Luc and the voyage of the fat belly. That's right. And we're going to have the second chapter today. Chapter 2, Sailing Away. Jean-Luc had been looking all over town trying to find a job. You remember? His father had told him, Jean-Luc, you are now old enough to find your own job. I want you to go out tomorrow and look for a job and then tell me what it is. And so Jean-Luc was so excited. Remember, he got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Wow, he was just so excited. And he finally, after reading his Bible and praying, eating his breakfast and cleaning up, he jumped into his best clothes and went out into the street to find the perfect job. But he had not forgotten to ask the Lord for help. And so as he was searching, he was saying, Lord, please lead me to the best job. He had tried the butcher, but the butcher already had 3 helpers. He didn't need anyone else. He tried the cobbler, but the cobbler was just rubbing his hands. He really didn't have any work to do. What was Jean-Luc going to do? Why, he saw the chimney sweep, and he jumped up on top of that house. Wow, he must have springs in his legs. And he got up there, and he was just about to ask the chimney sweep when, he just couldn't handle all of the dust and dirt. And so Jean-Luc said, I'm not going to do that. Whee! And he went down on the ground. And as he was walking around, he finally made his way to the pier. And while he was there, he saw a very large boat. And on the side of it, it said, Grand Ventre, which means in English, the fat belly. It was a very big boat. And Jean-Luc looked at that boat, and as he was watching it, he noticed there was someone behind him. And he turned around, and there was a tall, distinguished-looking man. And Jean-Luc was wondering, what will I do? And the man said, Young man, may I help you? How would you feel if someone said that to you? Why, Jean-Luc stood up straight and tall, and he said, this might be the opportunity I've been looking for. Sir, my father told me to find a job today, and I'm a hard worker. Would you like me to work for you? And the man said, oh, you are a hard worker, are you? I have been looking for a hard worker to be my cabin boy. You see, my name is Captain Kergelot, and I am the captain of the Fat Belly. Would you like to be my cabin boy? Would I ever? But first, I'd better ask my parents. Whee! And he was gone. Running as fast as he could. He ran as fast as he could all the way down the street until he finally got to his home. And when he got there, he was ready to ask his parents, and they weren't home. He was all alone. He was so excited. Why, I have prayed that God would provide me this job, and this must be it. And oh, I'm so excited. Why, you know how when you get excited, you kind of just, and you kind of walk around, and you can't sit down very long, and he was like that, and he was just, oh boy, I can't wait till my parents get home. And well, they were out shopping, and it seemed like they were gone for a long time. And finally, he heard the back door open, and in came his mother and his father. And oh, he was so happy. Mom and Dad, I've got something important to tell you. Son, why don't you help bring in the groceries? Okay. And he went and he helped bring in the groceries, and it took about 10 minutes because there was so much. And finally, Mom and Dad, I've got something real exciting to tell you. Son, we need to get ready for dinner. Would you please set the table? Okay. So he went and he got the dishes as fast as he... Hey, slow down, son, what's wrong with you? Nothing, Mom and Dad, nothing, really. Oh. And he set the dishes on the table and put a fork on one side and a spoon and a knife on the other, and put the cups out there, and he even poured water in them. He got everything ready and put napkins on the plate, and oh, it looked so wonderful. And yet his mom and dad were trying to get everything ready. They were making stew. They put the meat in the pot and had to chop up the carrots. Can I help, Mom? Really, I want to help today. What is wrong with you, Jean-Luc? Settle down. But you can help. And so he chopped up some of the carrots and potatoes and celery, and some of the other things, and put it into the pot, and they were finally done and said, all right, you have got something to tell us, don't you? Yes, Mom and Dad, I've got something to tell you. Well, what is it? Can we sit down at the table? Okay. So they sat down, and usually when there was something very important, they would all gather around the table, and Mom and Dad would be there, and they would always take it to the Lord and pray about it and then make a decision. So Jean-Luc was used to this. He said, Mom, Dad, and he forgot what he was going to say. Oh yeah, you sent me out to get a job, and guess what? I have found one and wanted to ask your permission if I could have it. And they said, well, what is it? Why don't you tell us about it? Did you get a job with the cobbler, or the butcher, or the chimney sweep? Well, and he told them all what had happened and how he couldn't get a job at any of those places. And finally he said, and I prayed and I asked the Lord, Lord, please show me the special job that I should have. And I believe God answered my prayer. Well, that's good, son. We're very happy for you. What was it? They were kind of getting impatient because he kept making the story grow longer and longer and longer. Are you feeling that way too? Well, finally, he said, I met Captain Caligula of the Fat Belly. The Fat Belly? What are you talking about? It's a big ship, and they're going to go try to find the mysterious land of El Dorado, and he wants me to be his cabin boy. Isn't that wonderful? Has God provided a job for me, or what? This is great! And, I told him I would ask you, and I'm sure that you want me to do it, right? Well, his parents sat there for a minute. Well, son, let me ask you a few questions. Do you know Captain Caligula very well? Well, no, but he sure is tall, and he's distinguished looking, and he talks right to me, and I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure of it. Well, son, we really don't know Captain Caligula very well. We know the butcher, and we know the cobbler and the chimney sweep, and we were hoping you'd find a job with someone you know. Jean-Luc, is there anyone on the boat from our church? Any of the men that are going to be working for him, or are any of your Christian friends going to be there? Well, I really don't know, Dad. I really hadn't checked into that. But I don't think so. I didn't see anybody I knew on the boat, but I thought since I'm a Christian, I could tell the people about Jesus, and maybe I could lead someone to Christ, and they would be saved. And wouldn't that be a great thing? Well, son, I'm glad you'd like to do that, but if there's not going to be a Christian adult with you, and if there's not going to be any Christian friends with you, I think that would be a very dangerous thing for us to send you away. And Jean-Luc, how long will you be gone? Well, Dad, usually a ship is gone for maybe 3 or 4 months. That's a long trip, I know, and I'd miss you a whole lot, but I sure am excited. It will be a great thing. Don't you think I should go, Dad? And he could hardly sit in his seat, and his feet were just bouncing up and down, and oh, he was so excited. And his dad said, son, I tell you what, your mother and I will talk about this, and we'll pray about it and ask the Lord. But right now, I don't think it would be a good idea if there's not going to be a Christian man there with you, or one of your Christian friends. But we'll pray about it tonight. Okay, Dad, thanks. Well, they ate dinner, and that's all that Jean-Luc could talk about. He could just talk about why sailing and climbing up into the sails and being in the crow's nest and looking around and seeing birds and seeing water everywhere. And finally, he would be the first one, of course, to get out of the boat and land on El Dorado. And he would plant his country's flag right there on the highest point of El Dorado. Why? He was going to be the next and greatest explorer. Well, it was hard for Jean-Luc to sleep that night. He would lie down in bed and he would dream about being on a ship and going up and down on the waves, and he was just so excited. And you know what time he woke up? 4 o'clock in the morning. Can you imagine getting up that early? Well, he didn't care. He was just, whee! And he jumped out of bed and was so happy. And he got his Bible out and he read, and he was sure. He was sure, I'm going to go on this boat trip. And you know what he did? He prayed about it. He was excited. And you've been excited about things before, haven't you? And you just pray your heart out to the Lord. And that's what Jean-Luc did. And he said, Lord, this is a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for bringing it to me. And I am just so happy. Please help Mom and Dad to see that this is what I should do. In Jesus' name, amen. And he was just so excited. And finally, when his parents got up out of bed, and after they had gotten ready, his father had his own personal time reading the Bible and praying. And they gathered around the breakfast table and had their food. And Jean-Luc said, Dad, I sure am excited about this. What do you think? Can I go on and be the cabin boy for Captain Kergula? Son, let's sit down. They sat down at the table, and Jean-Luc's father said, Son, you are my son, and I love you very much. And I care about you, and I want what is best for you. You see, Jean-Luc's father was a Christian, and he loved the Lord, and he loved his family, and he really meant what he said. Jean-Luc, as your mother and I have prayed about this, and we have talked about it, we see there are some good things. We also see that there are some things that are not so good. We do not know Captain Kergula. We do not know exactly where you are going. And we do not know if there are any Christians on board who would be good friends to you through the trip. We don't want you to be pulled away from the Lord by bad friends. And as we have prayed about it, we have come to a decision. Yes, Dad, and what is that? Son, we have decided that we do not want you to go on the voyage of the Fat Belly. Really? I wasn't expecting you to say that. Okay. All right, Dad. You know what's best. No, I'll obey. Jean-Luc was so disappointed. Why, he could hardly hold back the tears that came to his eyes, and he finally just had to go outside and walk down the street. And Lord, I prayed about this, and I feel so bad now. I thought for sure I was going to go, but I'll obey my parents. That was a very difficult next couple of days for Jean-Luc. He didn't find another job, and he finally walked down to the pier, and he noticed all of the supplies had been loaded onto the Fat Belly. And that morning he watched with tears in his eyes as the boat sailed away. What a sad story. Jean-Luc was so wanting to go on the Fat Belly on this wonderful adventure. Will he ever get to go sailing? You'll have to come back another time to find out.